everybody. Here we are for episode 58. We do want to make a correction from last week's show. If you're listening to the audio-only version that we did, we said Michelle Yeoh was on one of the Netflix Marvel shows. She was actually in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, so we just confused which program that was. So just a correction there. This week, last week we did Women in Action. This week, as you can see, we're focusing on one person, and that is the magnificent Jean-Claude Van Damme.
The Universal Soldier Kickboxer.
Kickboxer.
Me fail English? That's impossible.
I don't really understand how to speak the words that are coming out of my mouth, apparently.
He was the star of Kickboxer. My personal favorite is Universal Soldier. We got Bloodsport back here, and then Expendables 2. I realize I don't own a lot of his movies on DVD. I do own some more on digital, Sudden Death, Time Cop, Hard Target. But I am a fan, and there are a lot streaming on Amazon Prime. So if you have Amazon Prime and you're like, I need Van Damme.
Would you agree that his just overall performance got better or worse after the mullet went away?
For
me, I kind of miss it, but I think it actually did get better.
I would say the mullet was something that needed to be left in the past. However, I think it does help with performances in Hard Target and Time Cop. The mullet is definitely something worthy of having, I would say, if that makes sense. I don't know words well. But his career is an interesting one too, because he kind of started out, obviously he's big into martial arts and stuff. The Muscles from Brussels, that's his nickname. People should know him for that. He's from Brussels. He speaks fluent French, which will come up in one of the movies we review this week.
It would have been amazing if he was just faking his way through that movie that we're going to review.
Right, exactly. So he really, he was in Breakin', I'm sure just because he could move and stuff like that. No Retreat, No Surrender was his first big movie, but that he was a villain. And then Bloodsport, that was the first movie where he really showed that he could kind of command an audience. Mm-hmm.
And the stock in baby oil and Johnson & Johnson's went through the roof.
And is that the one that he does the little dance in? Is it Bloodsport or is that Kick? I can't remember which one is.
I'm gonna be honest; they all kind of run together.
They do.
So.
A lot of his '80s and early '90s stuff feel very similar.
The one that matters for me the most: Sudden Death.
Sudden Death.
Hockey and Jean-Claude. Oh, swoon.
That is one of those movies that I've always I've always considered it. We'll say a guilty pleasure, but. I read recently someone who doesn't like the word guilty pleasure because it makes it sound like it's, the quality isn't as great and stuff. He's like, if you just like the movie, just like the movie. So I like Sudden Death. It's a silly movie at times, but Van Damme just, like you said, adding the element of hockey, obviously it helps that as Blackhawk fans, the Blackhawks are one of the teams in the movie.
Yeah, they lose the.
They weren't that great at that time either. It was the '90s, so
that was when they were playing in the Stanley Cup Finals.
Oh, was it? Okay, so I stand corrected.
Do you want to talk about one of the most epic collapses? Mario Lemieux and Jaromir Jagr decided, you know what, we don't want you guys to really have a chance in this series anymore, and just steamrolled them. But again, we're talking about epic mullets.
Yes, we are at the perfect time. And what's funny is he really kind of cut his mullet for the most part for that movie, which would have been perfect for that movie. Powers Booth plays the villain in that film. They kidnap his kid, right? And then he has to go and rescue them. They are going to blow up the arena because they want money. There's really not a whole lot to that's the plot, essentially, to most Van Damme movies, I want to say, unless it's during a karate tournament. Those are the only different ones, like Kickboxer, Bloodsport. I always had a soft spot for that movie. I don't know what it was, if it was just the time that we grew up in the 90s, but Sudden Death has always been one of those ones that I would watch it. I've probably seen it 10 times, just because it always used to be on HBO and Cinemax back in the day.
Yeah. Well, it's got that speed aspect to it where there's,
You're right, yep.
The stakes are, through the roof, pun intended, because they're crawling around on the roof.
It is, it's one of those movies that if you kind of want to see, what an action movie should look like in the 90s, that pretty much follows that look. Directed by Peter Hyams. You got Van Damme, we already talked about Powers Booth, Dorian Harewood. It's just... a really fun movie. I'm not sure if that one's streaming. It might be on Amazon right now.
My goal this week is to find out what Powers Booth's real name is, because that is one of the most epic stage names I have ever heard.
Powers Booth's name is, no joke, Wayne, his name is actually Powers. He was born Powers Allen Booth.
Wow.
So there you go. His parents knew when he was born. They're like, he is going to be an actor and he's going to play a villain a lot.
Yeah. I mean, there's a time I went as Dirk Strongwood, but that's a different story for a different time.
It's a different podcast.
Now show me with Mike and Wade after dark.
So the movie did actually gross $64 million in a $35 million budget, so not a huge hit by any stretch, but for Van Damme, I think in 1995, pretty nice.
Almost doubled the money, so...
Yeah, right, exactly. Pretty nice take there for that movie.
I don't really think anybody would be mad at that. I know I wouldn't.
There was, unfortunately, they're calling it a remake on here, but I know it's on Netflix. It's called Welcome to Sudden Death with Michael J. White and Gary Owen. It's a more comedic take, as it says on the material. So they basically... What you're seeing these days is you're seeing actors remake or do sequels to old movies that no one cares about anymore, and then they just pop on Netflix and they try to make them different, and they're just trying to get that audience that still watches those movies. There's quite a few Kickboxer films too. He wasn't in 2 or 3, but then he's been in Van Damme's been in the most recent 2 or 3 of them that they've come out. So one of them's supposed to be good. I haven't seen it yet. But Sudden Death, like we said, that's a kind of like a underrated classic, I would say. Check that one out if you haven't seen it. But Bloodsport, like I was talking about, that was the one that kind of shot him to fame, Wayne. He was known for kicking people in the face, and that was the movie that showcased that the most. This was right around the same time, because I believe he left Predator, where he was supposed to be Predator, to do Bloodsport. And the main reason he left Predator is when he was on the set, you could look it up online, Google original Predator costume. It looked super uncomfortable. Yeah. And he hated it. He couldn't move in it. He couldn't breathe in it. And so he left. And then when he left, they created the Predator costume that we all know today, which a little bit, it's probably still claustrophobic, but the mask was a lot more form-fitting to the face, so it wasn't like it was ridiculous. It had a ridiculous snout on it and stuff before.
So really, we owe this version of Predator to Jean-Claude
Van Damme. We do, for him having the cojones to step away from what was going to ended up being a huge action flick of the 80s because he felt uncomfortable. Yeah. So, thank you, Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Indeed.
So yeah, Bloodsport, one of the many movies that people, I think, relate to him. Obviously, Bolo Yeung is the main villain, and he's been a main villain in many of these movies.
Yep.
That's kind of what the movie is known for. I can't remember if this is one where his brother gets killed and then that happens all, when you talk Van Damme, Seagal, Stallone, all their movies from the 80s and 90s are all the same essentially. It's just former military man's brother gets kidnapped and he has to go save the day, and then the next movie is his daughter has been kidnapped and he's got to go save the day, and
seems like he needs to develop a very specific set of skills.
Exactly. So it revolves around U.S. Army captain. First off, yeah. U.S. Army captain from Belgium, Frank Dux, has trained in the way of ninjutsu under his sensei Senzo Tanaka, played by Roy Chow. As a boy, Dukes and a group of his friends broke into Tanaka's home, and he teaches them karate, blah, blah, blah. After arriving in Hong Kong, Dukes befriends American fighter Ray Jackson. I think that's what happens. And then that guy, it's kind of like a Rocky thing where...
They killed Apollo Creed!
Exactly. It's basically like that. And so, then he has to, or Jackson's in the hospital, so maybe he's not dead, but he's put in the hospital. As you can tell, I haven't seen Bloodsport in a while. It's a solid flick if you like these karate action flicks.
Then I'm getting it confused with Kickboxer, where he goes to fight in this tournament, and he's got a army buddy or a military buddy who's also fighting.
Yes.
I believe.
See?
And they're it's like a Double Dragons type thing. So
that's more like a Mortal Kombat style, fight tournament type thing. I like Kickboxer a lot. That's another one that's been a while since I've seen it. But he really, like I said, Bloodsport and then Kickboxer, and this is where he kind of starts to see his star rise, and basically kind of have his pick of movies he wants to do. He did Cyborg in the same year, 1989, followed that up with Lionheart, Death Warrant, and then in 1991, when we get the what happens to every action star after a while. It's like, well, why can't there be two of them? And so we get Double Impact, where you have twin Van Dams, directed by Sheldon Leedich, written, produced by, starring Jean-Claude Van Damme as Chad and Alex Wagner. Very American names for Frenchmen.
See, that's a missed opportunity. It should have been Chad and Brad.
Yes, it should
I
have been
mean,
Chad and Brad.
missed opportunities. You know.
Let's see. It looks like Bolo Young returns, I believe. He's not in the main cast, but yeah, he's in this as well. This one, 1966, business partners Paul Wagner and Nigel Griffith open the Hong Kong Victoria Harbor Tunnel. Paul attends with his wife and their twin infant sons, Chad and Alex. After the celebration, the family is followed home by their bodyguard, Frank Avery, whom they dismiss. Once he leaves, the Triad hit squad follows them, kills the family. Paul's wife begs the Triad to spare the twins, but is killed by Moon, Bolo Yang, the top henchman. Their maid is able to escape with Alex, and Frank eventually saves Chad. And the maid leaves Alex at a Hong Kong orphanage, and Frank raises Chad in France. So you've got two twin brothers whose parents tragically die. They're raised by different families, and then they end up coming together to like avenge their parents' death, essentially. It's a silly movie, but I remember when this one came out, it was very popular.
I'm not gonna lie, man. It sounds like Star Wars.
It really, yeah.
It's two boys instead of Luke and Leia.
You're right, it does. And they don't make out, I don't think, at one point. Even though I'm sure Van Damme would have loved to make out with himself.
You know, I talked about missed opportunities, ladies and gentlemen. Here's another one.
Budget on that one was 15 to 16 million, made 30, so about double what it cost. Again, these movies back then, they weren't. A lot of what their money potential was home video, especially after the VHS boom in the 80s, when the VHS movies came out. It was how much you could make in the theater, but a lot of these movies, even though back then, majority of movies were made only for theaters, they started thinking like, okay, this movie, maybe we're going to make 15 to 20 million in theaters, but when it hits home video, that's really where we're going to make all the money, because people are going to rent the crap out of it.
I'm very happy that you brought up this topic, because we need to address something at the end of the show about what's going on with Disney.
Yes, so, I have that written down. We will get to that, and there's some other interesting stuff to bring up.
Not to derail the show at all, but yeah, that's something that's come up between our last show and this one that needs to be addressed, because
exactly.
But again, making double what it costs to make the movie. In the 90s, I'd love to know what the mathematical equivalent of making $30 million would equate today. So you're talking probably a good 60 million plus.
I would say
or more.
And that's not, you look at it, that's not a bad number.
Right.
So following Double Impact, again, I've said my favorite, and this right here, Universal Soldier. I don't know why it's my favorite. Maybe I watched it a bunch as a kid. Mm-hmm. It's sci-fi, directed by Roland Emmerich. Everyone knows him from Independence Day, director of Independence Day, 2012, Day After Tomorrow, basically any disaster movie ever. This is one of his earlier ones, and it stars Jean-Claude Van Damme, karate and biochemist Dolph Lundgren, mad scientist, if you will, in real life. Ali Walker, Edo Ross, and Jerry Orbach. This is a movie about soldiers that that are overseas and they get killed. Luke Devereaux is Jean-Claude Van Damme. They've made several sequels to this franchise as well. I believe in this one he's in all of them. He's not the main character necessarily in all of them, but in the first two he is, and then I think in the other ones he makes like a cameo appearance, which is weird because they're cyborgs, but obviously he's much older, so it's kind of hard to be like, how did you age, man?
It's like the T-800, man, living tissue over endoskeleton.
Exactly. So him and
Dolph. The more I interact with humans, the more I learn.
Him and Dolph Lundgren are two of these soldiers, and they are essentially, they bring these soldiers back to life kind of as robots, where it's like they have no memory of what they were, but they're cyborgs essentially, and they use them as like their own like attack force, like in the United States. So they're part of the military wing, and they unleash them on towns that like need to be, like if someone steals something or whatever, that's what it is there's a piece of tech that's out there or whatever, and they have to go get it back. So they send these soldiers out to go recover it, but then Jean-Claude Van Damme's character, Luke Devereaux, starts getting his memories back of when he was alive.
Right.
Remembering who he was. We've seen this time and time again since this, probably a couple times before 1992. But it's just, I don't know, it's just such a cool story. Dolph Lundgren plays such a great villain, I think, to Van Damme. It was kind of interesting to have them two karate champions. They do get to do some hand-to-hand combat stuff, but a lot of guns are involved in this franchise. So there's not as much hand-to-hand combat, I think, as people were probably expecting. But I always really enjoyed this film. It's one of those ones, on a rainy Sunday afternoon, pop on Universal Soldier. Now, my wife hates it, so I don't get to watch it as much as I would like, but, that's just what it is. I don't really know what else to say about it. When you have any thoughts on Universal Soldier, I'm sure you probably haven't seen it in a while.
Yeah, it's been a good 5 to 10 years since I watched it. But yeah, growing up, classic, shoot 'em up, bang, bang.
Yep.
You watch something like that, it's like, this has to be directed by Michael Bay, right? Oh, wait, no.
Close. It was one of his kind of after, or like predecessor, or not predecessors, what the one to come after? I don't know, whatever. They came up around the same time, basically. Michael Bay and Roland Emmerich. So the box office, $95 million on a $23 million budget, pretty good for.
Not too shabby.
Yeah, not too shabby for 1992 and a movie about cyborgs. I think there was a movie the year before, Terminator or something or other, that came out that made a lot of money too. But
yeah, I'm pretty sure that made more money though.
maybe, just a tad bit more. So yeah, if you can find Universal Soldier out there, usually it's on Amazon Prime. Go check that one out. He does have a cameo in Last Action Hero, which is I remember that because that's a whole like big action movie, tongue-in-cheek meta film.
That's I remember they're walking through the Blockbuster and Stallone's in the Terminator 2. Mm-hmm. What are you talking about? This is best work to do that.
That was you. That's a great movie. Well, I could have a whole conversation about Last Action Hero.
Oh yeah, and there are people that absolutely hate it, and I love it. I absolutely love it.
It's one of those movies. We're getting off topic here, but Last Action Hero is one of those films that has over time has garnered a lot of love. When it came out, it wasn't very well liked. It was kind of ahead of its time, and now people are realizing the tongue-in-cheek and the meta that it was back then, and now that's more popular these days than it was back then.
And not to dwell on that, because we will need to get to this movie someday, but I think we can both agree that we both wanted to be the kid in that movie with the magic ticket.
Of course.
Heck yeah, dude.
Back in our time, that would have been amazing. So the end of 93 to 94 is when you get a string of like not critically successful films. One really awful, but two that I kind of like, Wayne. One being Hard Target. We had back-to-back mullets. Hard Target and Time Cop.
Mm-hmm.
Hard Target, 1993, directed by John Woo. One of his, I think that's his American debut, I believe. Starring Jean-Claude Van Damme, Lance Henriksen, Yancey Butler, and Wilford Brimley. Of course, Wilford Brimley is amazing. Mm-hmm. He plays like his uncle. And now in this movie, it's very interesting. He is actually French. And they make Wilford Brimley do like a kind of Cajun French accent throughout this movie. So they actually do kind of hone in on like, hey, it's an actual French person.
Why do I not remember that at all? Wow, okay, well, time to revisit that one.
I just rewatched it recently and I didn't remember it either. And I'm like, wait a minute, he's speaking with a French accent. And obviously Van Damme is, because he's one of those actors that can't, like Arnold, can't hide his accent.
Yeah, don't ask him to either.
Right, exactly. So box office, this one, $74 million on a $19 million budget. Another successful film for him. See, and people wonder, you look back at these movies and people are like, how did these get made, or why did he get to make so many of them? It's because people would go see them. People love to watch these movies, the beat 'em up, shoot 'em up films where Van Damme is wearing some really tight jeans and kicking people in the face.
Tight jeans and a wife beater.
Or,
whatever the correct...
Degotee, whatever you want to call it.
I was trying not to say that word.
Yeah,
but,
I'm Italian, so whatever. The tank top, the white tank top he wears.
The undershirt.
Yes, the undershirt.
I think Nicolas Cage still wore it better in Con Air, but hey,
Yes. According to this, Wu wanted Kurt
also
Russell.
with the mullet. With
the mullet.
Drawing those connections. I'm sorry, Kurt Russell.
John Woo wanted Kurt Russell for the role, but he was too busy.
Also doesn't look very good in a tank top, so.
And so, he doesn't. He looks a little different in a tank top. Even though, Jack Burton, and it's right behind you there. The John Carpenter film, I'm drawing a blank. God damn it.
Escape from L.A., Snake Plissken.
the other one. Big Trouble in Little Tokyo. That one. Kurt Russell did wear a tank top. It's off topic. We could call this out, whatever. So John Woo then went to Universal's initial choice of having Van Damme star in the film. So Kurt Russell wasn't available. He went with the next mullet in line, and that was Van Damme.
That works.
And it's a killer mullet too, because it's got like it is like all kind of like Bart Simpson up top, and then the nice mullet in the back.
You got to get the spiky. Yeah, it's not just the business.
It's
but
a
you gotta get
Kentucky
the spikes
waterfall, man. That
with
thing,
the flow.
Woo!
And if you get the little cuts in on the side there, you're just onto something. So.
Yes, of course, a sequel to this was made without him 23 years later. Never saw it. Don't care to see it. In New Orleans, a homeless veteran named Douglas Binder is the target of a hunt. So that's right. This one is Hard Target is kind of like this movie, The Hunt, that just came out last year, or Surviving the Game with Ice-T. It's basically hunting humans, and Van Damme's character kind of gets involved in it because I believe that's what it is they like hunt somebody that he knew, so he was out for revenge, and then he becomes the target. And there's lots of cool slow-mo effects. There's the arrow shooting, like at the slow motion, like arrow shooting and stuff like that, because there's a lot of like bow and arrow and crossbow and shit in this movie for some reason. Arnold Vosloo plays the right-hand man to Lance Henriksen, so he was always that guy back in the day too. Like, you need a henchman, go to the guy who would eventually end up being the Mummy. He's another one who has a difficult time hiding his South African accent. He's gotten better at it, but...
You know what? I hear you.
What was that from? Yeah, so I don't want to give away the whole plot to this movie, but there's a lot of hard kicking action, a lot of Van Damme, a lot of explosions. Very fun movie. I still enjoyed it watching it a month or two ago. It's one of those movies I think it actually holds up better than probably when it came out in the 90s.
Nice.
So, nice little...
Unfortunately, that's a rarity for Van Damme.
It is. Time Cop was the one that followed right after that. That is the one directed by Peter Hyams, starring, of course, Jean-Claude Van Damme. And let's see the rest of the cast here. Mia Sara, Ron Silver, Bruce McGill. You recognize a lot of these people if you watch the movie. It's a cop who kind of think like Minority Report-ish, but in this one they actually go back in time instead of like knowing what happens in the future. They send someone back in time to stop anomalies in time. So kind of like Loki. The Loki series is the best comparison to Time Cop. Owen Wilson and the TVA are Time Cop, and Loki is the bad guy, I guess. I forget who it was. Ron Silver, that's right. Ron Silver, the late Ron Silver, always played these type of roles. He was really good at this. Again, this is another one I watched again recently. It's a lot of fun. It's cheesy. Time Cop's a cheesy movie. Does the science hold up? I don't know. But it's Time Cop. That's all that matters. It's got a great name.
I'm going to guess it doesn't because we don't have time travel yet.
This is true.
That we're aware of.
You're right. Eventually, that'll happen. Again, this is another one. A sequel was made. Jason Scott Lee and Thomas Ian Griffith from Karate Kid, Part 3, were in this movie. I never saw the second one. Again, it was one of those properties Universal owned, and they're like, hey, let's do a quick DVD sequel. That was like in 2003, so that was a little while ago now. This isn't a good movie, but we can't talk about Jean-Claude Van Damme and not talk about 1994's Street Fighter, Wayne. That right there, that reaction, is why most people don't want to talk about Street Fighter.
When you heard they're making a Street Fighter movie, now I don't know how much of a fan you were of the game.
I was a huge fan. I was excited.
I knew of it. I thought it was cool. I'm not a big fighting video game fighters. I get bored. But yeah, so much hype going into this, and oh gosh, yeah.
Well, there's so many characters in this franchise. They cast the muscles from Brussels, the Frenchman, to play the all-American Guile, who's supposed to be like the epitome of like U.S. Army. Like, so you already have this main character with this thick French accent, who's supposed to be super American. So right then and there, you're kind of throwing us for a loop.
Right. Oh, you bring up the name of the character, and there's a lot of turmoil and back and forth. It's Gully. No, it's Guile. It's Gully. No, it's Guile. And to this day, I don't know how to pronounce it properly. So I'll go with your pronunciation, and hey, that works.
I've always said Guile. Stephen E. D'Souza directed it. It starred Jean-Claude Van Damme, the late Raul Julia, who died basically like right after they finished filming. Yeah. So this would go on to be his last film. People always feel bad for him. This was his last movie. I get it, but honestly, if you watch it, and I've seen this within the last 6 years or so, since I've been in Florida, so the last 4 years actually, he's really good in this movie. Like, he knew what movie he was in, Raul Julia, and he knew exactly how to do it.
Yes.
And his line delivery is amazing. He gives a fantastic performance. Everybody else is kind of trying to figure out what the hell they're supposed to be doing. He knew what he was doing, and it worked out really well for him.
Deranged and unhinged, if I remember correctly.
Yes. Well, the whole, there's the line that he says to Chun-Li, Ming Na Wen, and it's, for you, the day that M. Bison came into your village and killed your entire family was the worst day of your life. For me, it was Tuesday.
Yeah.
And the way he delivers that line, it's just like, holy shit. And this is like a kid's fighting movie, but it's like the way he delivers it, it's fantastic. But again, the movie itself is terrible. This is no way a promotion to go watch the movie. It's an awful movie with a really pretty solid cast. Damien Chapa is in it. Kylie Minogue plays, let me go down to her character.
Sonia.
No, wrong franchise. Cammy. Damien Chapa plays Ken. Simon Callow's an official, I guess. Byron Mann plays Ryu. Dasim is played by Roshan Seth. Wes Studi plays Saget in the movie. Grand L. Rush plays Balrog. Andrew Brunarski plays Zangief. He was pretty good. He would go on. He was in the program. He was Latimer in the program.
Nice.
He was in Any Given Sunday. He'd go on to be Leatherface in the two Texas Chainsaw movies from 2003 and 2005, I think.
Were those the Jessica Biel versions?
Yeah, the first Jessica Biel was in the remake, and then he returned for it was a prequel called Texas Chainsaw: The Beginning with Jordana Brewster. So Miguel A. Nunez Jr. As DJ. So a lot of the characters are here. Jay Tavera as Vega. Peter Taiusopa as Honda. So you get these characters from this game, and they look the part, but there's just nothing there, really. It really is just like... It was like they tried to do Street Fighter mixed with a typical Van Damme type movie. And it's also like they never played a video game a day of their life. Like, it didn't... or all they saw were the end screens, because there is one big movie ends on a freeze frame. My favorite thing. It's them doing their video game pose though. So all the characters do their video game pose at the end in one big screen. All the surviving characters in one big screenshot. It was terrible. It was just, it wasn't good. It struggled. Van Damme was not the right choice. As much as I love the guy, he was not the right choice for that movie. There's a lot of reasons that went wrong. But if you want to have a good time with a bunch of friends, get together, drink some beverages, whatever, smoke something, I don't know. It's not a bad. It's a good bad movie to watch because it's so awful.
Right.
With some redeeming qualities like Raul Julia.
Just a real quick question. Doesn't Gully or Guile in the game do something with his hair? He's known for his hair, right?
Yes, which Van Damme really they didn't do anything with his hair.
Okay.
I think they made it blonde, but he didn't have like the. I know what you're talking. He's got kind of like the spiky, wavy hair.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have it. He's wearing a hat most of the time in the movie.
Interesting.
That
ruins it for me. Yep,
yes.
that was what ruined it for me.
It almost made $100 million in a $35 million budget. So again, successful. Another successful film from Jean-Claude Van Damme in the 90s. Maximum Risk, The Quest, Double Team, Dennis Rodman.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's a forgettable one.
That's a forgettable one. I don't know what they were thinking. I saw this movie in theaters with my buddy. Jason, again. We used to see all these movies.
I have to ask, did you prefer Dennis Rodman as an actor or as a professional wrestler?
Honestly, as an actor.
Remember, that was the WCW days where they were just pulling everybody.
Oh.
Remember Steve McMichael was a wrestler?
Jay Leno.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody that was anybody, they were pulling them in and trying to get ratings.
Oh yeah, no, when
I think it was Jay
Durf-
Leno versus Rodman, wasn't it?
I
Wasn't that
don't
one of the fights?
recall that. I just remember Vince McMahon versus Durf
Yeah.
and the shave your head match.
God.
Golly.
So stupid. Let's see. Yeah, so Double Team, bad. Double. Let's look at a little bit of statistics about Double Team. Let's see. Great poster. Van Damme, Rodman. I like it. Van Damme, Rodman, Rourke. Mickey Rourke, the villain in that one.
Completely forgot that he was even in that movie, to be honest.
See, I didn't until I saw it.
No.
See, and this is where you can see his career starting to slip a little bit. It made $48 million. But it cost $30 million. It's only $18 million over its budget. 3 Golden Raspberry Awards for Worst Supporting Actor in Rodman, Worst New Star Rodman, and Worst Screen Couple Rodman and Van Damme. The problem is when you do something like that, and you're gonna do a buddy comedy, kind of like a buddy comedy action flick, and you have a guy who's not a great actor in Van Damme, then you stick him with somebody who's not an actor at all in Dennis Rodman. You're really not asking for the movie to be successful.
Yeah.
So that was like their only actor really involved in this movie was Mickey Rourke, and I don't think he's the villain, but I don't even think he's in it that much.
Right.
So like it's not. You take your best actor and kind of put him in the back seat, and you have your two not great actors up front. Not really a good look. So that's why that movie failed. Knockoff, Rob Schneider, literally a movie about knockoff jeans. If anyone remembers that one.
I have no recollection of this one.
That was in theaters too. This is when he started to. So he did that one theatrically. I'm not even talking. It's a terrible movie. That one is on Amazon Prime right now. But again, he kept getting more money. $35 million to make that movie.
That's obscene.
$44 million is how much it made. It's only 87 minutes long. That was when Rob Schneider was the go-to sidekick. He was in Demolition Man. He was in Judge Dredd.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, oh, look, we got this action
This
movie.
before the Gigolo movies?
Before Deuce Bigelow, yep.
Okay.
And then you get like his first, this is when he started doing VOD. Leon Jenner. I don't think I ever saw that one. I don't think it was in, $35 million budget for a movie that didn't even go to theaters. So he was getting the budget. Universal Soldier: The Return, that was in theaters. I saw that one in theaters just because I was a big fan of the first one. The second one is terrible. There's not a lot to talk about except for, and it's a movie I haven't even seen yet, but we're going to talk about it just because it kind of revived his career a little bit. And that's JCVD. Came out in 2008. That was a meta movie where Van Damme plays a fictional version of himself, who ends up he ends up taking someone hostage or gets taken hostage. It's something, but it's a very meta comedy, and it actually got really good reviews.
I just now figured out the whole JCVD thing. Yeah, it took me that long, guys.
So that was a movie, independent film, French-made film, where, like I said, it's like an action film, but he's playing a version of himself in the movie, and it's supposed to be really good. I have yet to watch it. It kind of fits in the line with his Jean-Claude Van Johnson Amazon show, which people liked, but only did not get picked up for a second season. Very similar. That one, he plays another version of himself. So he's kind of in on the joke now, which we'll get into when we get into our first review. Kind of plays into that new movie that he just had come out. He was in Kung Fu Panda 2. He did make an appearance as the villain in Expendables 2, so that was his most recent theatrical movie. And then a bunch of just stuff that pops up on Netflix that you'll see. Apparently he's in the new Minions movie coming out next year. Kickboxer Retaliation, The Bouncer, Blackwater, Kickboxer Vengeance, Kung Fu Panda 3. Welcome to the Jungle is another one that I've seen bits and pieces of.
Do they have fun in games?
It's another comedy. It's like Adam Brody from OC. It's his movie, but Van Damme plays their they're like on one of those company outings, and Van Damme plays the guy that like has to teach him to like work as a team, but then like a killer gets involved or something like that.
I was just quoting Guns N' Roses.
Oh, I know you were. I know
Okay,
you
just
were.
making sure.
I know what Guns N' Roses is, man. Okay, I'm just not a huge fan.
Yeah, man, like every rose has its thorn and stuff.
And stuff.
Yes, I know it's poison.
All right, so let's get ready for our reviews.
Of the week.
And this week we start with, it's an all Van Damme show, people. We start with The Last
Oh,
Mercenary.
Van Damme it.
His brand new movie, 2021 French action comedy film. And yes, you can definitely tell that that's what they were going for. Directed by David Charhan, with a screenplay by Charhan and Ishmael Sai Savain. The film stars Jean-Claude Van Damme in the lead role, along with supporting cast that includes Albin Ivanov, Asa Sila, and Samir Dekaza. It was released on Netflix on July 30th, so on this last Friday. Jean-Claude Van Damme plays, if you can guess it, like a super spy. And he's like retired, but he's a mercenary, hence the name Last Mercenary. So he goes around helping people, getting paid. It does have a great opening shot of him doing the splits that he's become famous for, obviously, on top of a ceiling. And the fact that it's most likely still him doing it at like almost 60 years old,
Right.
is pretty impressive.
Yeah, this was surprisingly entertaining, honestly.
It-
I have a problem with reading. Like, I've got some mild dyslexia in there, so being that it's a French film and it's got American subtitles or English subtitles in there, it's got the American subtitles. I tell you what,
Speak American, damn
I'm
it.
trying to read my language. I tell you. Anyway, so a little bit hard to follow, but really, just you can tell just by the way they set it up. You don't need to understand exactly what they're saying to
You
get
don't
the
really,
joke.
yeah.
So,
It is definitely one of these French like lighthearted, not spoof, but kind of it flirts the line with that a little bit. But it's just like they love these little comedies like this, and it fits. You can tell it was Van Damme wanting to get in that business. I guess like let's make one of those movies. It's very.
that genre is basically made for someone like him.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean,
He's got
somebody-
some comedy chops, I'd say.
he can't. He doesn't have to take himself too seriously. and,
Exactly.
you know, he's not the greatest actor, so when he can
No.
be lighthearted, it's like if he flubs up a line, you can just kind of go with it. It's like, it's actually a really good take. We'll use that.
Yes, and they have the little the meta nod, if you will, when they walk into the movie room and he sees the Bloodsport
Yeah.
poster and he goes, "Ah, it's my kind of guy."
Yeah.
It's a
Exactly.
good line. So basically, the plot is his son has immunity in the country in France. So he can't be charged with a crime, that kind of stuff. Usually that's for like rich people's kids from other countries.
Yes.
Well, some guy who actually ends up becoming one of the better characters in the film decides to delete. Like, oh, I see some bad stuff happen here. I'm going to delete it, not realizing that someone else was using his son's identity to commit crimes, so he couldn't get in trouble. So because everybody knows that the guy using his son's name is a bad dude, as soon as they lift it, they go out and they try to arrest him. Well, the address they go to is his actual son's, his son is just kind of a wuss, for lack of a better word. And not as tough as his father, doesn't know who his father is. So then that means they get him. So then Van Damme has to like kind of come out of hiding and save his son and save his reputation, while also saving France, because the guy that stole the identity is also trying to sell like this thing to a terrorist organization or whatever. Whatever. All these movies. That's
It's complicated,
Yes.
and they didn't have to make it so overtly complicated.
They did not. The first hour of this movie, I wasn't sure if I liked it or not. It was like the last 40 minutes where they really get to a lot of the comedy where I started to really enjoy the film.
Right. Well, just the nod to Al Pacino and Scarface with the
Yes.
iconic soundtrack, "Push It to the Limit."
Having a character who's basically his bad guy persona is because he watched Scarface a bunch of times.
Yeah.
It was kind of hilarious, and it did work, I think, for the movie. Yeah, and Van Damme holds his own in this. I'd say he does the kind of a master of disguise, if you will. So we get to see him in several different outfits.
Yes. The long-haired blonde Van Damme was my favorite.
Yes,
for sure.
yes. Was that when he was the pool boy?
Yes.
There are some definitely good comedic moments. There's lots of good guys getting hit and flying into shit. Like there's that kind
Yeah.
of stuff.
It had a good, like I said, I touched on it already. Got a good comedic value to it while
did.
still being an action flick.
Yes, exactly. But it's not, it's not a balls to the walls action flick, which may turn some people off of it, expecting that type of movie
Right.
from him. But it does have enough, I think, to hold over those people. Plus, it is funny enough and cheery enough to enjoy. I mean, I had a good time with it. Whether I would say it's a great film or not, probably not. But it's a very enjoyable.
Yeah, it's an enjoyable, above average film
Yes.
for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that The Last Mercenary was this way, because if they tried to do like Van Damme from the late '80s, this ultra tough guy,
Yes.
still, it's like, dude is showing his age.
Yes.
As much as he's trying to, fight off Father Time, he looks like an older
He
gentleman.
looks
now.
older. He's definitely wearing hair plugs or a toupee or both.
Right.
So he's losing his hair. Just shave it off, Van Damme. That's what I'd say. But hey, you know what? Each to each their own. But I could tell, as we worked with someone who was a monster truck driver who also had hair plugs, I could tell that's what they were. Won't mention that person by name just to keep that to myself. But if you know us and you know Monster Jam, you know who we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if you were looking for something for a good time, it kind of came out of nowhere. I saw a trailer for it like a couple weeks ago that it was going to be debuting on Netflix.
Yeah.
It kind of light this week, so I was like, let's give that a watch. It's a new Van Damme movie in 2021. Who would have thought that Netflix would add a new Van Damme movie this year? So I thought that part was
again
kinda
touching on pro wrestling. If they're going to keep marching out Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair and all these
yes,
antiques from the '80s, got to still have love for them, but
yeah.
let's just move on. But Van Damme, good on you for this movie.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes. In the posters, they have a lot of fun with the posters and the opening credits too. You could tell what kind of movie you're in for when it
Yes.
starts. It's not to be taken seriously at all, and it's just like I said, it's just a good time. So then it gets us into our next movie, which I passed over on his list, obviously, because we are reviewing it. So this week we actually get back to doing kind of an older movie that we never saw, and I didn't realize actually that it kind of would tie in somewhat to this newer movie because it's from 1999. It's called Inferno, but Inferno was like almost his first attempt at like a comedy.
Yeah.
Like Inferno was very lighthearted. It's not a good movie, really, and it's shot on Amazon. It's in full screen, so you have to deal with that.
4x3. Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't. I was taking notes. My notes are somewhere else, but I actually, you know what? They're right here. Let me grab my notes, people.
Yeah. I actually I didn't look at the cast, so when I saw who was in this movie, I was like, okay, I'm familiar with this. And I actually did enjoy this movie quite a bit.
Okay.
More than I thought I was going to. Up until the scene that most people would have gotten excited about, if you know what I'm talking about. There's more than just two of them in that bed.
Yep, I know
I'm
what
like,
you're talking
okay.
about.
But aside from that, the action is good for, good, quote unquote,
Yes.
good, bad.
Eddie Lomax, that's
Yeah.
who Van Damme plays. There's the opening scene with the motorcycle and a coyote, because that's like his nickname. So what's
The fabulous Johnny Trejo.
Danny Trejo. You said
Johnny 23 from...
Johnny, yeah, he plays Johnny in this one too,
Yes.
actually. Johnny Six Toes in this one. Well, so here's what I wrote down, and we know the answer now. But at the beginning of the movie, I didn't know. I wrote Danny Trejo parentheses ghost ? Because
Yep.
he's talking to him, but then you realize he's not actually there. But then for some reason, when he gets shot and left for dead in the desert, the actual Danny Trejo, Johnny Six Toes, saves him. But you're still not sure if he's real or not.
Who leaves their buddy drunk in the desert? I mean,
Well,
I would have a hard time carrying you out of the desert,
Oh,
but I
for
would
sure.
not just leave you. Well, I may leave to go get help, but I
Exactly.
would at least cover you so you're not...
Well, but see, it still begs the question. I think he was still hallucinating when he was drunk. But it was just a weird coincidence that he was hallucinating him when he was drunk, and then he came and rescued him later.
I think we can assume that he was going to see Johnny.
Yes.
So-
Well, and he was there to commit suicide.
Yeah.
I wrote down Jesus War Hero because he does lay down like he's on the cross at some point.
Mhm.
So I thought that was interesting. Left for Dead. Pat Morita plays a handyman with kind of a British accent. Like I didn't notice it till later in the movie, and I'm like, wait a minute, is he using a British accent?
Why can't they just let Pat Morita talk his normal...
American
English dialect.
Yeah, English because he's from America. He's from California. Everybody. If you don't know that about Pat Morita, he did. If you watch Happy Days, that's how he actually sounds.
Yeah.
Larry Drake is the villain. Always plays the villain. One of my favorites, Dr. Giggles. He was the villain in Darkman as well. Oh, that when he kills the two people in the gun store and no one gave a shit. Everyone's like, "Oh, are they dead? Yeah, okay." Like, just like,
well, the fact that they're what is it, the grandfather, the uncle,
they got the uncle
shackled to a lazy boy.
Yeah, in the back of the store. How could no one ever not hear him? He's not that far away from the front of the store. They told him that he was in the hospital. So they were a bad dude. So I guess that why no one cared that he was dead. There was the great line though where he threw the knife and he said, "Catch this," and the guy caught it with his chest. Yes. That was pretty great. There are lots of shots that are held way too long. I don't know if you noticed that, where they would be like just on your face, and it's like you say something, and then they're like 30 seconds later they cut. I'm like, what, God, really? Could we move it along here? And I'm sure it wasn't 30 seconds, but it was too long.
It was long enough to make it uncomfortable.
Yes. The fact that they described that Pat Morita can fix anything means that he can apparently also get rid of dead bodies. I didn't know where that fit into being a handyman.
And all he did was dump him off a cliff.
He didn't burn him. He didn't put him in a barrel or anything. He literally dumped him into like a garbage dump or just off a cliff somewhere.
I enjoyed the older couple. The one lady is talking about her faith, and she's a Pentecostal, so she's dancing around with a snake, and I'm like, but she's also got a problem with the bottle.
And she's also kind of a pervert too. As we see, there's a scene with Van Damme and two lovely ladies that happens later in this movie, which kind of came out of nowhere as well. As they go to thank him, and then he just drops his towel.
But he's still wearing his boots. I give him credit for that.
He's still wearing his boots after he got out of the shower, which doesn't make any sense. Pat Morita, this is a line from the movie. I bet he gets lots of pussy. That was coming out of Pat Morita's mouth. That one was a bit strange.
Yeah. I know. I'm not sure about this, but I think Jeff Kober, Jacob Hale from Sons of Anarchy, was one of the goons.
He was. Yep. He was one of the goons. I recognized him right away.
Yeah. And then was it Jamie Presley?
Yes, Jamie Presley plays Dottie, one of the waitresses. Yes. One of the waitresses. There were a couple actors in there too. One that was kind of offensive. Played by a white Italian man who plays an Indian person.
Chevalier, right?
Yeah. Victor Chevalier, the late Victor Chevalier, great character actor. Vincent Chevalier, sorry.
Vincent, yes.
But yeah, it's not very PC. Silas Ware Mitchell from...
not really well acted. It's just, that whole thing was just off.
That was kind of weird. Just have him be someone else. What show was this guy on? Grimm. So Silas Ware Mitchell from Grimm, he plays one of the heavies or the baddies, whatever you want to call him. Lee Tergesen plays one of the motorcycle guys in the very beginning. He is from Oz, and that's like his only scene. I was like, oh, Lee Tergesen, and then he disappeared.
Right.
And here's Jeff Kober. You said, So it's a really weird, strange movie because they do rely heavy on comedy in this one, which I thought was a weird choice. But it works at times. It's like I said, it's a bad movie.
I love that they stopped the gunfight to discuss why they were trying to kill each other.
Yes.
I'm like, wait a minute. Okay.
That is a great. Why did you even try to attack us? And he's like, hold on.
Everybody stop firing. I'll tell you what. No.
There are so many strange things. The other interesting thing about this movie is John G. Avildsen, who directed Rocky and The Karate Kid, directed this movie. It was straight to home video. It was his last film that he did. He died 18 years after this movie was made, and this was the last film that he did. So that should tell you how people felt about it, I guess.
When you make something like that, it's like, you know what? I'm done. No.
It's over. So let me say, Danny Trejo, you find out he is a real person. He is still alive. Mm-hmm. Until he's not alive anymore. He does eventually die in the movie. In a very kind of silly way where to save him, I guess he knocks him unconscious, and then he rides out pretending with the cowboy hat so they think it's him, and then they hang him, and then they shoot him, and then Van Damme saves him, but it's too late, he's dying or whatever. Yeah. And then the woman is really Rhonda, she's really upset that Johnny Six Toes has died.
Who she couldn't even remember who gave her the recommendation that her apple pie will put a smile on your face.
Yes.
But who? Never heard of him.
But she cries tons of tears for him. Such a strange movie.
I did really enjoy this movie. Like I just say I shouldn't really enjoy, but I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought.
Well, and some of these bad movies we talk about doesn't mean just because I'm saying it's a bad movie doesn't mean you're not going to get enjoyment out of it.
Right.
It is entertaining. It's short. It's 96 minutes. So it breezes through. It's available on IMDb TV. If you have Amazon Fire Stick, you can get that set up very quickly on there for free. All right. So as I started doing last week, I'm going to keep doing this until I feel like I don't want to, or maybe I'll switch it up and do something else. Mike's horror pick of the week. This week I chose another female-centered horror film. This one is called American Mary, a film by the Soska sisters. It is about a girl who's wants to be a surgeon, but she's not actually a doctor. So she does weird surgeries and stuff on her own. And it's as it's described in the back, a Frankenstein for the 21st century. It's very bloody. It's very gory. It's on Shudder right now, so if you have Shudder, check it out there.
Your description makes me think of Human Centipede.
It's not like that, because I don't like that kind of gross stuff like that. I prefer the blood and guts, not the other bodily fluids. Those are gross. She basically is like an outcast, and here we go. Here's what it says in the back. Disillusioned with medical school and perpetually broke, med student Mary Mason finds herself drawn into the shady world of underground surgery and body modification. So she gets involved in this nasty bit of underground world where she's doing these procedures for people. And obviously the cops end up finding out and getting involved and stuff like that. So it becomes kind of like a To Catch a Killer, but the killer is the main character. So it's one of those movies where you're not really rooting for her, but it's a very interesting watch. It stars Catherine Isabelle from Freddy vs. Jason and Ginger Snaps. Definitely high recommendation from me. I just saw this probably maybe 2 years ago for the first time, and as you can see, I liked it so much I bought the Blu-ray. It really just a solid flick, and if you like gory, nasty movies, it's definitely up there. And it's again, when they say body modification, it is. I mean, you aren't wrong when you talk about Human Centipede, because they do sew body parts together. It's just not the body parts that I want to see. So, not that I want to see body parts sewn together. That was weird on my part. Where are you going? It reminds me very similar of a movie called May, which is a movie about a girl who's building a body out of human body parts, which I really love, and I've talked about that movie before. So this one is a more kind of bloodier version of that, but she's not really. Wayne is scared. Wayne is terrified right now. Anyway, check out American Mary. It's on Shudder. Definitely worth your time if it's that type of movie that you like. All right, Wayne.
Whatever you say, sir.
Let's go into our movies we've watched recently. Anything you want to talk about?
Working my way through the He-Man series on Netflix right now. Still very, very good. Not exactly sure where it's going, but it's entertaining all the same.
Okay.
In my downtime, winding down before bed, we're going through The Big Bang Theory yet again, because, well, that's what we do. Okay. Let's see, what else was there? No, nothing else that was memorable to watch. But
okay. I watched Our Friend on Amazon Prime with Casey Affleck, Jason Segel, and Dakota Johnson. Really enjoyed that movie. It is about cancer, so it is sad. It's a true story, though, about a reporter whose wife gets cancer, and his best friend is called in to help and decides to basically stay all the way until the end. And it's very emotional. Really a great, solid flick. One I had been meaning to see for a long time. Finally got a chance to watch it a week or so ago. Really liked it. I watched one called Scare Me on Shudder, and it's a horror comedy kind of in a way that it's not very scary though, but it's one of those movies where two people get caught in the dark and they're telling scary stories. Instead of it being one that I thought it was, where you would cut to the actual scary stories they're telling, they act out the scary stories. So, but what they did was really cool, is they edited in all the sound effects that you would kind of make up in your head are in the movie, but it's them doing it. So and sometimes you'll see a shadow of a dog walking, but it's them kind of it's really creative and really inventive. It's gonna probably piss off a lot of people because it's not very scary, and it's called Scare Me. but it is actually a pretty good comedy, and it has a pretty dark ending, which I liked. So definitely check that one out. The Hills Run Red is a movie from 2009 that's very similar to Texas Chainsaw and The Hills Have Eyes. Movie director has a lost movie that no one's ever seen that people want to find. A kid sets out to find it, and it turns out he gets more than he bargained for, and is like part of the movie type of thing. It's a pretty sweet movie. I like that one. Very gory. The Doorman with Ruby Rose and Jean Reno. Skip that one. Blood Red Sky. This is one that if you describe it to people, they're gonna look at you like, really? Like, I'm not gonna watch that movie. It's an airplane with vampires on it. Okay, but it's actually done like a very serious like hostage film, like say like Air Force One or Passenger 57.
Let me say, when you told me about Train to Busan, you're like, zombies on a train. I looked at you like, what? But
I'm telling you,
great movie. So I will.
I'm telling you, it's on Netflix. It's in German and English. That's how some characters speak English, some characters speak German. It's set up like Air Force One, like these people take over a plane, but they don't realize that one of the people on the plane is a vampire, and she's on her way to New York to get like a blood transfusion, which if you've seen the movie Near Dark, that's how they cure vampirism in that movie. So it's similar, taken from that. She's with her son. She knows how dangerous she can be. And so like when these terrorists take over the plane, led by Dominic Purcell from Blade Trinity, they don't realize what they're dealing with. And so it seriously, like, think Passenger 57, but Wesley Snipes is actually playing Blade. That's basically.
I am sold. Sign me up. Get the popcorn. We're watching this.
That's a good one. Rebecca and I really like that one. The Power, another one on Shudder. That was a decent ghost story. The other one we watched recently we really liked is The Boy Behind the Door. The only reason I laugh when I read that is because I put it on and I was like, this is going to be a good ghost story. She loves ghost stories. Not a ghost story. 2 kids get kidnapped by pedophiles. That's what the story is. But it's a really great like thriller or horror movie where you're rooting for these kids to get out of this creepy, creepy house. So
I hope so.
It was one of those things where it was like, I thought it was a ghost story. I'm sorry. Like, Rebecca's like, are they going to be okay? I'm like, I don't know. But it was a really, really good movie. Very intense. 89 minutes long on Shudder. You can rent it anywhere. Definitely check that one out. We just finished up. I finished up Virgin River. Solid show. Good drama. If you haven't seen that, it's on Netflix. Wayne, I know, has already watched it. Mm-hmm. We just finished yesterday. It's a mini series on Peacock called Dr. Death with Joshua Jackson, Christian Slater, and Alec Baldwin. It is fantastic. It's a really good 8-episode series. Joshua Jackson plays really creepy on this one, Wayne. I know you're a big Dawson's Creek fan. This is a different role for him. He plays it really...
Quack.
That is
Doctor,
well.
Doctor Quack.
Yeah, I got it. Mighty Ducks, people, if you don't realize that. Charlie from Mighty Ducks. And it does a good job. Like, it cuts back between him. Like, so basically, it's a true story of a doctor who 33 of his 38 surgeries that he performed were messed up. 33 out of 38 were messed up. Like, it's like taking a hammer and just like hammering bone for like no apparent reason. It's not getting the job done. So Christian Slater and Alec Baldwin played 2 real life characters who made it their life's work basically for about 5 years from 2012 to 2017 to make sure he never operated again.
Wow.
He kept getting through doors. People, because the way Texas was working back then is like you can
stop at Texas. That's,
explains
it all.
That's basically it, and it really is kind of crazy when they explain it to you and why he was able to get away with what he got away with. It's nuts. But Alec Baldwin's character makes a really good point because they're like, their question is he really bad or is he doing this on purpose? And the show does a good job of making you not really giving you that answer. It wants you to kind of get there yourself, but Alec Baldwin puts it to a great point at the end of the show. And it's a true story, so you can look it up. Christopher Dunch is the surgeon. He's now in prison for life, so that should help you justify watching the show. Alec Baldwin's character says, if I had one, he's a surgeon too. He's like, after one surgery like that, if I had one surgery where I messed up somebody that poorly, I would make sure I never operated in an operating room again.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that he had 33 of them leads him to believe to the idea of that he must have been doing this on purpose, because at a certain point your own mind would tell you to stop doing it. And he didn't have that. It's kind of like if Dexter became a surgeon. That's how I looked at how Jackson was playing.
When you think about it, Dexter kind of was a surgeon.
Yeah, it's true, he was. But a professional one who got to work in hospitals while they were still alive.
Well, they were alive for a little while.
Well, I'm just the people he murdered, yes, but because he used to deal with all the dead bodies of the police. He was the forensics guy. That was my point, I guess. But yeah, it's a solid show. It's 8 episodes, but it's still a pretty quick watch, and it's a lot. I shouldn't say fun, but it really
Intriguing,
yes. And Christian Slater and Alec Baldwin deserve their own TV show because they are amazing together. You basically have Alec Baldwin as the straight man and Christian Slater as the kind of like over the top funny one, and for that type of a show that's that serious, it really worked for that show. And I really wanted it. I'm like, man, they need more. Like, can we get a sequel series where they're working to like stop cases or stop another crazy surgeon?
buddy cop drama.
Yes,
Dramedy?
I would definitely like that very much. As everyone knows, I'm a huge Christian Slater fan, so it definitely would be right up my alley. All right, so news. Pokemon live-action Netflix series is in the works. Ellen Burstyn is returning for Exorcist trilogy sequel film series from David Gordon Green, who did the Halloween movies. Leslie Odom Jr. is already listed as the star of that film series. It's $400 million Peacock and Universal paid for this franchise that they're getting. There'll be direct sequels to the original Exorcist film. Hopefully Linda Blair will return. They haven't really said yet. But David Gordon Green did the Halloween series, the new one, and I like how it started. So I'm hoping that he's going to put the same thought and stuff into this franchise. We'll see. Let's see. Will Smith and David Leitch's Fast and Loose picked up by Netflix. Rajan Paul from Bridgerton to star in reimagined version of The Saint for Paramount. Lakeith Stanfield and Tiffany Haddish to star in the new Haunted Mansion film. A Waterworld sequel TV series is in the work with Dan Trachtenberg directing the pilot. Taika Waititi making a live-action Flash Gordon film.
Interesting.
Yep. It was supposed to be animated, but they've announced this week it's going to be a live-action. Tom Hanks joins Wes Anderson's next film with Tilda Swinton, Adrian Brody, and Bill Murray, who are already on board and are regulars in his films. It'll be the first time Tom Hanks works with Wes Anderson. And just announced today, The Boys renewed for a fourth season, while 3 is still in production. So obviously things are going very well for The Boys.
Mm-hmm.
Jensen Ackles from Supernatural joins the cast for season 3. The other big thing Wayne alluded to this week is Scarlett Johansson has filed a lawsuit against Disney. A lot of I'm not sure, it's like $10 million or something like that.
50.
Or is it $50 million? Well, they're saying she lost like $50 million. Yeah, but I think the lawsuit and stuff was like that. Regardless, the money doesn't matter because people are going to be like, oh, well, she got paid $20 million. When you make these movies and you make big tentpole movies like this, you signed a back-end deal, and that's based on the movie being released in theaters only initially, and then sometimes you may even get a back end from home video sales, that kind of stuff.
Right. But
like, it's very known that Robert Downey Jr. made $50 million off of the Avengers movie, just off the box office, not off his salary. So while we, little peons, sit down here, we may get upset and get on our keyboard and start typing how can she do this? She's already getting $20 million. It's not about the money. It's about getting what you're owed.
yeah,
right?
Disney made a deal and they reneged on
They
it.
honor, and yes, and the problem with, and people don't understand this, but I've listened to a lot of movie podcasts, so I know that I hear this all the time, and I read the stories. The studios will actually, so they'll make a movie that, say it makes $100 million over its budget. Well, that's to the actor. Okay, well, you made this much money over. I'm supposed to get this much percentage of that over that you made.
Right.
What the studio will do is they'll go, oh, well, hold on, we got to add in the marketing cost. But then we spent more money overseas to promote it too. And then we spent, you know what? Actually, we only made $18 million off this movie.
Yeah.
And then what you find out, usually what happened, is that extra money that they made, the extra $78 million, was split up between the executives.
Of course it was.
Or $82 million. $82 million was split up between the executives at the company. Mm-hmm. And so, therefore, when it's left over, all they have to pay their star is $18 million of gross. But maybe the deal was only if the movie made $20 million.
Yeah.
So then they get nothing. So that's what, in her contract, it's supposedly what it says is that she was supposed to make, they were only supposed to release it in theaters first, and they didn't do that. So when they knew that this plan, this is one thing I've been seeing online, because apparently now Emma Stone is also considering filing a lawsuit. And her movie
Cruella.
for Cruella. Her movie made way less than Black Widow. So what Disney should have done, would have been the smart thing, is to get this all hammered out before the movie was released.
Right.
You know, like knowing that this was what was going to happen, they should have said, okay, we're going to kick her this much extra money because we're going to do this. Or we're going to give her, what they could have done, we're going to give her a percentage of the home video market, which they didn't do. And the home video market opening weekend for Black Widow was $60 million. Exactly. So that, which adds, if you add that to the box office, we're talking about a $140 million movie, which only to her looks, you know, to her contract looks like an $80 million movie, which is what it opened to. So there's a lot to play here. The only thing is the way the reason we talk about it and the way I look at it is, it's like basketball. They always complain when players leave teams because they want more money elsewhere, or they're going to do this elsewhere, and they always, for some reason, people always back the teams, even though the teams are run by billionaire one percenters that nobody likes. Movie studios are the same. Disney basically owns everything.
Yeah.
And it's funny to me to see people like defend Disney, who doesn't need defending, by the way.
Yeah.
And you don't have to care. You don't have to care about Scarlett Johansson's lawsuit. You don't have to care that she has that money. But just understand that she's not suing because she wants more money necessarily. That's obviously the goal. But she is suing because she wants them to honor their contract.
It's the equivalent of your employer do something wrong, and then your neighbor is taking your employer's side.
Yes, exactly.
It's cut and dry like that. It's like,
well, people have been putting online
Stockholm syndrome thing that we have for, oh my God, Disney, or
just I can't believe she's not loyal to them, or whatever have you. And not only so, we have the Cruella one possibly on the outcome. Gerard Butler suing the makers of Olympus Has Fallen because same thing. They're claiming they only made so much money. He had a deal where he got he's a producer on all three of those films. He had a deal where he gets a profit of that movie. He's the one suing for $10 million. That's what it was. So Gerard Butler suing Millennium Films and New Image, I think, for $10 million because of back end money that he believes that he is owed. He is the face of that franchise. He's the only reason that franchise makes any money. So this is, I think, opening up, like, what you're seeing is Scarlett Johansson is probably the biggest person that could come out and do it.
Right.
And so now that she's done it, you're going to get other people go, okay, well, if she's going to do it and not care what they say about her, then I'm going to do it.
Right.
And granted, and what Disney did was very shady. They released how much money she made on the movie up front, which we all know. Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson, Chris Hemsworth. Now, especially Robert Downey Jr., make that much money per movie, and Scarlett Johansson make that much money per movie. We know that. That started in the 90s with Jim Carrey when he was making $20 million a picture. It's ridiculous that they make that much money to make movies. But you know what? We go see those movies, so that means that's how much money they're worth. It's the same thing with football players. If people stopped watching the games, stopped going to the games, players wouldn't make that much money. But people don't, so they make that much money. It's the same with the movie business. If you stop going, they'll start paying them less. But people still go, and people still spend the money at home. These movies still make money, so the salary shouldn't really be you're like, oh, well, she's got enough money. That's not why she's suing. That's going to be the outcome. Obviously, she's hoping to recoup the money that she's owed, but it's more the principle of the thing than anything. So it's just one of those things that I think when we see one rich person arguing with an ultra rich person, we kind of have the tendency to be like, oh, well, what the hell are they arguing about? They have everything.
Right.
But that's not what it's about. And they also put out there too that she doesn't care about the pandemic, which was something that you can't say as Disney. Like, maybe she doesn't, I don't know, but you can't say that like without having any proof to back that up. So, and I know Kevin Feige, apparently he hasn't come out publicly, but the rumor is behind the scenes he is very upset with Disney and how they handled this. So we'll see going forward if they're a little more. It was weird for them to come out and attack one of their main stars, who also happens to be a female, and they've never really attacked any of their male stars. Now, granted, I don't know that their male stars have been any of these issues, but it doesn't look good for Disney when you come out and do this. And I don't know what movie it was, but she had just signed on to be in one of their next big Disney ride movies or whatever it was.
Yes.
So I don't know if that'll affect this or not. We'll find out.
But yeah, we felt compelled to talk about this, in the movie and filmmaking biz.
Yes.
So agree with us, disagree with us, hey, let us know. We are always interested in what your guys' thoughts are on these things. Also, drop your Van Damme comments as well. We've got
Yes.
our Facebook and our Instagram links right here. So
And this will be
hit us
going up on a YouTube page, so you'll get to watch this there, and you can comment there as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right, releases coming out. Dexter, New Blood, November 7th on Showtime.
So excited.
King Richard with Will Smith about Serena and Venus's father, who's kind of like helped start their careers as tennis players. Obviously, they're responsible for being the great tennis players that they are, but he's apparently got a very interesting backstory. So we're going to get to see that November 19th in theaters and on HBO Max. Excuse me. Death Rider in the House of Vampires from director Glenn Danzig from the band Danzig, starring Devon Sawa, releases August 27th on VOD. Hawkeye coming November 24th to Disney+. And then House of Gucci with Adam Driver, Lady Gaga, Jared Leto, Jeremy Irons, Salma Hayek, and Al Pacino hits theaters November 24th. Directed by Ridley Scott. He's actually got 2 movies coming out this year. That's that one and The Last Duel with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. So busy winner for Ridley Scott. Deaths this week: Ronnie Kramer, filmmaker, artist, dead at 64. Rick Aiello, son of Danny Aiello, the actor who just passed away a couple years ago. His son also passed away at 65 from pancreatic cancer. Joey Jordison, founding member of Slipknot, dead at 46. Dusty Hill, ZZ Top Dusty Hill of ZZ Top, dead at 72. And Ron Papelli, infomercial legend who was spoofed on SNL, dead at 86. I also do want to mention we did have a scare in the Hollywood business this week as Bob Odenkirk had a heart attack on set of Better Call Saul. I know a lot of people on Twitter and stuff, it was a rough day because there were no announcements going on how he was doing, but he is okay. He's recovering. They did not have to do surgery, so if you're a fan of Bob Odenkirk, if you've haven't seen Nobody, definitely check out Nobody because it's well worth your time. But obviously, Better Call Saul too, great show, and he was on Breaking Bad, so he's been around for a long time.
Best wishes to a speedy recovery.
Exactly, and that was one of those things it comes out, he's one of the nicest guys in Hollywood, so and that's always how it happens. The people it happens to, right? So, all right, that's our show for this week. Thank you for watching and listening, depending on where you're hearing this. For Wayne Yerke, I am Mike Kirkpatrick. Thank you for listening and watching Now Showing with Mike and Wayne.
Ronald Reagan, the actor?
Hasta la vista, baby.
It's never goodbye.